All right, let's move on. Steve Smith and Michael Irving
I don't know what's going on here.
have gotten into a little bit, have started a little bit of a debate. And we love this type of debates because it's all about who you got.
Yeah, because we watch these guys.
Right.
We watch them play.
So it is, it started from a conversation. Can you tell us how it started, Joe?
Well, it was during, they have commentary about the games, and Michael Irvin, it was Reggie Bush, and then it was Steve Smith, and then the regular commentator were there, and they were having a discussion. So they pitched to Michael Irvin. Michael proceeded to talk about Joe Flacco's weapons that he has this year, and they were talking about Michael Crabtree, and he said that it's been a long time. It hadn't been since 2012 that Joe Flacco had I trust you guy who could go up and get passes that he was throwing, and your boy Steve Smith was sitting right there. So he kind of took offense to it, and then here you have this clip here that ends up being a YouTube classic of the two going back and forth, discussing their skills, discussing who's better, who has more rings, with Reggie Bush egging it on.
I got to tell you, Steve Smith is not the one to mess with.
No.
He doesn't pull punches. That's the way he played. And I've noticed him as an analyst, very confrontational.
Yeah, that's him. Pound for pound, he is probably one of the better football players that we've ever watched. It's just unfortunate that a lot of people didn't get to see him play in Carolina. Like, this is before, the internet was big.
Right. He made the most out of really not that much. Well,
Jake Delhomme,
right,
Rodney Pete,
right. Let's play a clip from that conversation. This is Michael Irvin and Steve Smith debating their status as elite receivers. And again, to just give some context, Michael Irvin sitting next to Steve Smith, a retired Baltimore Raven wide receiver, although his glory days were with the Carolina Panthers. Michael Irvin opined that the Ravens have not had a go-to receiver since Antoine Bolden.
And I trust you receiver.
I trust you receiver. Let's see what they say.
Tell him to go high pointed. Yeah. That would have taken him out of bounds. Yeah. Michael Crabtree saw this. He measured that ball with what I call his seeing speed, his ability to tell where that ball is going, maneuvered his body. That's what I call one of those big guys. Steve, you're bad. Well, you standing up, you were bad, man, because my knee hurt. Right? I got excited. You stand up. So you telling me that they ain't had a wide receiver since Antoine? But Steve, you played that, then you got hurt, so he had to go through it because you talked about it. Those injuries. I'm with you on. I went through the injuries, but Antoine wasn't the only baller on there. Because I understand you have the rings, but I passed you statistically years. Hold on. Hang in there. I got enough rings to let all y'all borrow. Hang in there. Have some. I concur and I agree with your rings, but at the same time, it ain't no route I couldn't run that you hoped you could run.
I like the competition still on the side right now.
I got a doctorate route.
I like it.
Talk about it. I got a doctorate route. You got an associate's degree. Play, bro. Let's community college. They got 3 rings. Listen, absolutely.
So we've got you covered right here from field level. That's right. Stadium, it's starting to fill up. These two.
Charles Haley. Yeah, some great ones over.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Steve Smith is not playing around.
No. He went straight for the juggler.
He went straight for the juggler. It is a fair critique that Michael Irvin may have been surrounded by the greatest cast outside of 70s Steelers where, 10 players on a unit going to the Hall of Fame.
That team was amazing.
Right.
The coach, the owner, everybody.
Right. I'm not sure how many Hall of Famers came off of that offense. It's going to be close to 7 or 8, just off the offense. But Aikman, Emmett, what was pretty much unanimously understood to be the best offensive line in football, at the time. The fullback. What was the fullback's name? You remember?
I know who
He
it
was
is.
good.
Yeah.
The tight end, Jay Novacek.
Was it Moose Johnson?
Moose Johnson.
Yeah, it was.
Moose
Yeah,
Johnson.
Yeah.
Jay Novacek.
Yeah.
Right. So 10, 9, 10 guys making Pro Bowls from that squad. So Irving was definitely blessed with the better cast.
Now, the interesting thing is when you look at these stats here, you talk about the receiving yards.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot to unpack when you talk about receiving. You can talk about catches, receptions,
Right.
touchdowns, all of that.
And the stats that are up right now are Michael Irving's stats.
As far as the total yards for a wide receiver, you see that Steve Smith has 14,731, and he's number 8. He played from the year 2001 all the way to 2016. And then you go all the way down to number 27 to find Michael Irvin's name as far as the yardage goes, being 11,904 yards, and he played from 1988 to 1999.
Okay, before we go from the 1988 to 99, looking at Irvin's stats, his career, his age 22 season, 32 receptions. His age 23, 26, and his age 24, 20. So those first 3 seasons, he clearly was not really involved in their offensive game plan.
No.
He wasn't a 1 or he wasn't a 2 receiver. Potentially he could have been a 3 or a 4. We'd have to leave it to some of the Cowboy fans to straighten us out on that.
Right.
But those first 3 years, they're not. You can't really even look at that. If we're going to start considering, and if you do look at it though, you have to look at it from a context of those were the first 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
The Cowboys team that you got to was not good,
That's true.
and you weren't in their offensive game plan.
That's true.
Okay,
That's true.
But at the same time, he did develop.
Yeah.
Okay, and from 1991 through 1999, that's his prime. Okay, they started tracking targets in 1992. He averaged about 130 targets per season from 92 to 98, and averaged about, let's say, 85 catches and 1,300 to 1,400 yards a season. So a short window for Irving, a lot of chips in that window, but big numbers also in that window. So he's a Hall of Famer, and he has the rings. But is he truly better than Steve Smith? And would you, if you had the choice, are you taking everything being equal in a bubble? Are you taking Irvin or are you taking Steve Smith?
I lean towards Steve Smith because I feel like Steve Smith excelled with less.
Mm-hmm. Can we get Smith's stats up? There it is.
Especially in a game too, where you talk about being durable, being able to play for multiple seasons. Steve Smith did a lot, especially at his size.
Yeah.
And he could run every route on the route tree. Michael Irvin,
And he was also someone that they handed the ball to in situations.
he did punt returns.
You're right.
He did several things, and so that's why I would lean towards Steve Smith. And unfortunately, back in the day where you didn't have an avenue to see all the games, like teams that weren't local, to you, people didn't get a chance to see him play, because had he played in some place, like a bigger market, then I think we talk about him a little bit
Right.
more. But people that know football know Steve Smith.
So Steve Smith cracked the regular rotation for the Ravens in his age 24 season, which is 2003, at which point he was targeted over 100 times, and he had how many receptions? 88 catches. And then he continued to be productive to that level all the way through his career in Carolina until he was released and then signed and went to Baltimore. And then the year to address Michael Irving's argument, 2014 in Baltimore, Steve Smith was there, and he put up over 1,000 yards on over 100 receptions, I believe.